Hey everybody, Feng here again with this week's video tutorial for Design Cinema. And for those of you who watched last week's video, you probably saw this image already. So this week we're going to focus on a kind of a mini tutorial on digital matte painting. It's not something that's refined or finished because this image was again done in front of a live class in under about an hour, maybe hour and a half at most. So it's quick, but it does get a lot of the major points across, and perhaps later in one of these tutorials we'll go ahead and do a much more elaborate matte painting demo or something where we could take a much more refined image and go through it. But in any case, hopefully this will help some of you who are interested in working off of photo plates to see how we could manipulate something like this is the base image, into this. So again, it's quick, but I'll try to cover as much as I can. And also, I'm going to skip a lot of stuff I talk about in the other videos. So hopefully you guys are keeping track and watching the other ones as well. So that way I don't have to repeat the same thing like values and all this kind of stuff over and over and over, which I think I'm kind of doing for a lot of these videos. But again, it's kind of important though. Those things are what makes a painting work. So I do mention it from time to time. All right, so let's get started here. First, I'll turn off those layers. Dunk, dunk, dunk. All right, and we have this image here. So this is a picture I took in Hong Kong. Some what do you call these, apartment complexes. And Hong Kong is a pretty cool city where they mixed a lot of modern architecture together with these kind of older buildings, and they're known for these AC units sticking out everywhere. Very cool stuff that if you're a Ghost in the Shell fan or those Japanese anime things, you've probably seen images like this in those shows. And Hong Kong is pretty much the starting point of a lot of those kind of punk, dark world kind of, everything cyber tech and all this kind of cool matrixy worlds. Hong Kong is really that. So if you really like those kind of places, go take a trip down to Hong Kong because it's reality, as you see in this photo. All right, so let me start a layer here. Oops, that's my little perspective layer. I'll show you that in a bit. So this photo is taken by myself. So when you're working off of images, the best thing to do is make sure they're yours. When you're using photographs for textures and those kind of things, or just get a color palette, it's not as important because the image is literally gone by the time you're done with it. All the image did was serve as a color palette or some kind of starting point. In a case like this, where the final image has the original picture still pretty much in it, you gotta make sure the copyright belongs to you. So don't go off to Google or something and find a random image, because pictures are copyrighted things. They're not something you can just use for free. Now, they belong to somebody. They belong to the photographer or the magazine. So to be safe, even if you're practicing, try to take your own. And also that shows a little bit of commitment of that you really care about your own projects, that you don't work off other people's stuff, right? So get a digital camera. They're cheap as crap these days, right? Whoops, I shouldn't cuss. So they're cheap. Go get yourself a digital camera and take photos. So all right, so let's get started here. So here's the image. Let's turn on the first layer. What I'm gonna do here is prep the plate, right? In the film industry, they call this stuff plates, kind of like the raw image that you get from a shoot. So, or matte painting, they give you these kind of exactly what you have here. Here's the plate, and we need to turn this into something else. And here you go, right? Here's a raw plate. You can see here, I manipulated the color a little bit. I knew I wanted to turn this into a kind of like a fallout kind of environment, except instead of post-apocalyptic kind of everything destroyed, we'll have a lot of plants kind of come in and overtake the city, kind of the earth reclaiming itself back kind of design. So I tinted this slightly greenish yellow to start, and then I added another layer here, just a quick color. This is actually a color burn layer, you see, which brought up the contrast, so we could really get that dark stuff, dark and light values going for this image, especially for the the overgrown, chaotic world that we're trying to do here. Let me zoom out a little bit. Bonk. All right, so you see that, and again, all this is for plate prepping. We haven't done any paintings at all. This is all quite simple stuff. It's just using layer adjustments to achieve this look. And then I added a bit of sky. The original photo, the white balance is quite off. The white balance was set for this building in the original photo, as you can see here. Yeah. So the camera blew out the sky, which if you look up here, is completely white. And this I want to avoid in a painting because the contrast is way too high. So you almost got that HDR kind of bloom that you see in video games happen here, the nuclear dawn look. So I got rid of that by just pasting in some image of clouds. Right, it's not even that high res, but your surface purpose is good enough. And it's not that perfect. So if I zoom in here, you can see like there's a lot of artifacts left over from the photo. One of that is because it's quick, but two, it's because it doesn't really matter as you paint, especially for a painting like this where a lot of the world's going to be destroyed anyways. That just adds to the flavor of it, adds to the overall look. So it's not bad. In this area here, I'm going to destroy this environment. I know I need a focal point, especially if you watch the previous videos, things like this, these kind of big paintings, you need a focal point. Otherwise, the viewer has no idea where to look. It's like, do I look here, or do I look here, do I look here? You don't know, right? So in this painting, I want to direct the view to somewhere in this area. So I copy and paste it. The same image, this image here, this image comes from this picture here. It's probably copy and pasted from somewhere over here. So that's all I did is copy and pasted that in. So I have some kind of chaos, some kind of material, some kind of grip for me to put paint on. I darken the bottom up, so this way I could have a rate of light, because in this setup, you could almost see a natural progression of light coming in from this direction, which is quite nice. So that allows me to bring contrast. So we have light, we have dark, so obviously we should bring in light. Those are bringing a nice read for the eye. So go boom, boom, boom into this section here, being the main focal point, which you'll see later on. Here I darken up the sky just a bit. Let me make sure this fits on the screen. Okay, darken the sky for allow us to play up the contrast here. See, right here we have too much white. I don't like this section here still. Even though we put the clouds in here, this section here is still quite blown out. You got this, it looks like a light source, right? This almost looks like the sun or whatever, even though the light is coming in from this direction. And you can get that from the shadows, you see here. Right, here's a shadow being projected, so all you have to do is find that angle. And you could then calculate a little bit of where the light ray is actually coming from. There's a couple of hints of these AC units as well, as far as where the light is actually coming from. Yeah. So now the light over here is obviously bounce lights. Okay. So, and this is a pretty easy indication to see as well that this entire building is casting a shadow off of this. So, but this day is quite overcast. If you look at the original photograph, it's actually a very overcast day, meaning that the sun is not super directly lighting anything in this scene. It's kind of coming from everywhere. But there is a stronger light source coming from the upper left. But overall though, it's not like the sun is clearly seen in the sky. It's definitely being covered by clouds, and that light ray is being diffused down. And these are actually great for matte paintings. I believe most matte painters like light sources like that. That way you can manipulate the lighting to whatever you want. A overcast lighting scenario allow you to adjust the setting, adjust the direction of light, because everything is sort of not really baked in. There's no hard shadows or anything, because imagine this shot had a big shadow that going across like this. Right, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to stick to the original lighting. Whereas something like overcast, you could almost reverse it. You could put the light party coming from this way and fake this entire side to be dark. So it just opens up a little bit more possibilities. Okay, here is a very small layer. Oops, let's talk about this one first. This section as well, this is going to be acting as a foreground. So yeah, I added a same thing, copy and pasted something from over from the same image. This one's actually taken from somewhere over here, and I pasted it in to add a foreground element, which I'll use later to establish the scale.